some people from Berkeley I had been to that were here, and I was going to look them up once I got settled in, but bought a house, and the house was packed up full of boxes and stuff, and one of my old students from New York was on a tour, and there was a place in Buckhead called the Brandy House, and he had told me he was playing. It was the first night here, and I got down there, and I went down to the Brandy House, and they asked me to come sit in with the band at the end of the night. So I got up on stage, I sat in, and they invited this other guitarist, a guy Barry Richmond, who plays around Atlanta a lot. And at the end of the night, the guy Barry was like, "Man, you sound great. You know, you're living here now?" I go, "Yeah, just like living here for about a day, about 24 hours." And he just said, he goes, "Well, I need a drummer. Stuff's not working out with my drummer." He goes, "I got a gig tomorrow. Are you available?" And I was like, "Yeah," you know. And he was just like, "Well, anyway, I got about 3 CDs worth of stuff in my car." You know, he goes, "I'll get them for you." And he gave me 3 CDs and said, "Learn as much as you can." And I sat down there the next day making notes and writing out charts, and he had been entrenched long enough. There's a funny story. I'm going to go real quick. When I met Barry, one of the first things was, "Oh, so you're from New York?" He goes, "Where in New York are you from?" And I said, "Long Island." He's like, "So am I." He goes, "Where in Long Island?" He goes, and I was like, "Belmore." And he's like, "So was I." He's like, "What high school did you go to?" And I was like, "Method." He's like, "So did I." But he was a couple of years older than me, so I just never, it turned out he grew up about a mile away from my house, a few blocks away, you know, and I had never met him, but I took those things, I learned them, and it was good for me. Barry had been here in Atlanta for so long, he knew so many people, that within a month of playing gigs with Barry, I kind of got entrenched with a bunch of session players that, you know, Derek Trucks and all these other younger players that were coming up and going out and starting to do stuff. And so it was just by going out and sitting and playing one tune, it took me to having no gigs when I got here, to having a gig the next night, and then filling up my calendar within a month, like 5 nights a week. You know, so you know, again, that was part of the mentality of going out. If I just sat at my home that night, nothing, you know, I probably would have found a way in. But by going out and being part of finding out what was going on in the scene, I met other musicians and got a gig and led that gig to other, you know, other gigs. So, anyway, where are we on time?
It's 2:30.
2:30? Okay. Any other questions?
You
Yeah.
know Trey Cool?
What's that?
You know Trey Cool?
I don't know him personally. I know who he is, though. I've met him at different events and stuff. I wouldn't be able to tell you, like, I've got his number in my phone. Is that somebody you
Yeah, he's like sort of like my idol almost.
That's cool. You know what? I mean, I've got tons of idols that I emulated as a young player, and who, you know, what you do again is you find out, you know, it's easy now with Facebook and Twitter and everything else like that to find out when they are going to be around Atlanta, and you know, usually you can find out, if somebody's just, as long as they're not just jumping on another plane, flying out right after a gig, or jumping right on a tour bus, they're usually around town somewhere for a day, and you know, it's not about getting backstage to try to meet these people, but you know, it's finding out where they are, meeting them, and then, you know, continuing to build a little relationship. But somebody like that, that's who you aspire. See, it was much harder for me as a kid. There was no Facebook, you know. They didn't have cellular phones. You know. You know, anyway, but there are ways to reach out. You know, there's nothing wrong with telling somebody that you know, they're a big influence in your life, and just be saying kind words, and that you know, you want a career, and that you're an influence, and just nice humble words. And if nothing comes from you, you never get a reply. Fine. A couple months later, if you're doing something, you have a little video clip of something you're doing, you know, or something you're playing along with, or tell them what you're learning, you know, taking lessons, you'll send it to them. You know, and eventually, you will get a reply. You will. So on the right day, at the right time, and you'll be, "Hey man, this kid from from Atlanta keeps you know, sending me these emails or sending me these things on Facebook." And you'll be surprised one day that one day, you know, just a little thing, and from there you just let it build. You know? Who else might have a question?
Dave, could you talk a little bit about practice routines? We got a lot of students here, obviously. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, practicing, I'm going to go into, when I was studying, when I told you about Jim Chapin, you know, when I was studying, I had different teachers who took me through a lot of stuff, but one of the things that they never really touched upon a lot was technique. I had like one guy early on, my first teacher when I was young, he showed me how to hold the sticks and stuff, and in doing that, he was the guy who showed me, and I played traditional, holding sticks like this, and all my teachers kind of left it alone. And every now and then I turned my hands over, and my practice routine up until then was always like whenever I go to my weekly lessons, or whoever I was studying with, I'd take my stuff and practice what was written in the books, and a lot of it was just listening to stuff and playing along, to constantly listening and learning stuff. So it was a combination of listening by ear and what I was learning from my teachers. Then when I decided I was definitely, moving forward, I knew I was going to make a career in this, but I realized a lot of stuff that I was practicing, I wasn't incorporating any of this stuff into here. So I was trying to figure out how I can start incorporating stuff that I was learning from my teachers. It was either that or I then had to reevaluate, maybe I wasn't even right with the right teacher, or maybe I wasn't studying it the right way. It's something I was missing because I was getting all this great stuff and I had no way to play it. I finally got to a guy, I started with Jim. I guess I was probably about 13, 14 years old. And been playing, started guitar at 5, but really wasn't going anywhere. I started playing drumming at 7. So I'd already been playing a couple of years. And when I got to him, first he said, I want you to take everything you've ever learned and throw it out the window. Today is day 1. You know nothing about playing, including how to hold the drumsticks. And I remember sitting there going, you're going to tell me I don't know how to hold the drumsticks? But I was like, I so respected him, because I knew he was this famous jazz drummer and stuff, and the place where I was teaching, just that he helped me teach there was amazing to me. And one thing I learned is through him, I went through a phase where for like almost 6 months, 7 months, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do my old way, and I didn't really have down a new way, but I had to stick with it. And I learned at that point that I had to keep trying. Things that were more difficult were going to obviously help me more. And I had to keep reaching to things. There was always going to be things, and to this day, there are things that I can't do, but he made me learn through technique and relaxation that there's a certain thing, no matter what instrument you're doing, I call it muscle memorization, okay? If I'm learning to play, like we were talking about paradiddles earlier, if I'm playing paradiddles, at the beginning, we all go through learning right, left, until we just, it's on autopilot. At the beginning, there's no way I'd be able to talk and be able to do this, let alone move it around. At a certain point, I have this muscle memorization. And the only way I was going to get this muscle memorization was to learn about relaxation, And to be able to practice, I learned, had to learn. It was a combination through Jim Chafin and my own teachers, Jim Chafin and a guy, Donald Fantaglaro, who was another great teacher and a great drummer and clinician, does a lot of stuff around the world. And they taught me about how, this how muscle memory works, and how I needed to learn to play, I could say, intense without being tense. So a lot of what I always did when I was practicing, if I was trying to learn a groove, okay, if I was trying to learn like a Latin groove, and if it was going to be, I was learning to play notes. And learning to play those notes, is not playing music, it's just notes. I can program it to a drum machine. So I had to learn, I had to get rid of all the tension. First my arms, my fingers, my feet, just everywhere. Just get rid of the tension in my body. And one of the things I'll never forget that Don Fantaglaro said to me one of my first lessons, he said, think about the best you ever played up until today, the best you've ever played in your life. He goes, did it all come naturally, or were you forcing everything? I go, well, the best I ever played probably came naturally. He goes, right. He goes, because those are things that your body have memorized. So I started learning about motion, and I guess this could work on any instrument. But for a drummer, I can only show from a drummer's standpoint of view, but I had to learn how, taking a stick, how to get it to work for me, to let it to bounce. There's no reason for me to ever take a stick, throw it down, and then pick it up. Because in picking up, I forget the amount of muscles, but you know, let's say it's 13 muscles going this way and 13 muscles to use to pick up. Well, I could just go in one direction and then guard it back up. Control that bounce, like on a practice pad or something. So I was kind of playing in a down motion. You know, I could start with that. But then that one down motion, I can learn, and you can learn as guitarists, or if you're playing here, you know. If everyone can do this, take your hand, everybody take your hand, just stretch it out. Stretch it as far as you can. Feel tension everywhere? You know, now pull it back in. You pull with your fingers, now there's no more tension. So you want to find out what's causing tension. You know, if you're holding your sticks, okay, if you play guitar and you feel tension all up and down here, you're doing something wrong. You should never be feeling tension. It should always feel loose. You shouldn't ever feel, there's no way I can do what I do fast by playing with tension. So if I can play one motion, but then let that one downbeat learn to be a 2. You know, let there be a bounce, or 3. You know, so there's a thing called the Moeller method. It's easiest for me to explain as a drummer. So again, I'm playing, you know, I learned how to practice first by getting rid of that tension, okay? And then the other thing that I really learned how to do, you know, practicing was to really take an honest look at myself and learn what I had to take out a piece of paper and a pen and write down what my weak points were, okay? And if it was going to be, you know, playing jazz, if that, I had to start thinking, if somebody called me for a certain type of gig, would I be able to do it, okay? And what do I need to learn, okay? Who do I need to go to, or what do I need to learn to be able to do that? Like you know, marching chord stuff, like I was good at rudiments, I knew all my rudiments, but I just wasn't good, it wasn't my forte. But why should I ever have to turn down anything like that, you know? So a lot of my practice routines over the years, from the time I was a kid and still even now, have come from what do I feel, taking an honest look, what do I feel uncomfortable playing? There's got to be certain styles of music where I just don't feel comfortable playing. And usually then I could find a wealth of information as to how to tackle those type of music. You know, if it was playing with a click track, I've seen countless drummers be thrown off sessions, play with a band, only to get into the studio and be fired or be replaced. You know, my teacher, I told you about Joe Franco, he got paid so many thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars back in the late 80s and early 90s to play on all these metal records that the drummers couldn't play with a click track because he could, you know. And there's some very famous songs from some very famous bands from that era that he played on their records because he played with a click track. So he made it known to me at that time. He was like, learn to play with a click track. He goes, I promise you, he goes, when you end up in the studio, if you can't do that. So you know, I had to learn how to play with a click track better to get it to where it could just be in the background. I could, and until I could feel like, well, wow, that's keeping time for me. I don't have to worry about keeping time anymore. He gave me advice on how to do it, how to play slightly in front of it, how to fall a little bit behind it, you know. So I've always been re-examining myself, but I think one of the most honest things you could do with yourself is to look in the mirror and just say, you know, that guy, you know, you can go on YouTube. If you can see somebody doing something you can't, well, aspire to learn how that person does that, you know. There's no tricks here. There's nothing I do is done with a magic wand. I had to learn how to do it at some point in my life. Yes, there was definitely natural ability I had, but through guidance, you know. And, you know, the practice comes from great teachers, you know. Like when I was very young, I didn't always follow my teacher's advice. I wanted to play where I wanted to. There was countless years I probably wasted by going to my lessons and then just the last day kind of cramming what they wanted me to do, you know. And it probably hindered my development moving along as it should have, because I just wanted to go home and play Rush records, you know. And if my lesson was on a Thursday, all of a sudden Wednesday night I was like, oh, I got my lesson tomorrow. So I just learned what they showed me, you know. And I probably advanced at a slower level, you know, until, you know, I got some teachers that wasn't going to fly. Any other questions? Yeah.
This is from, because you said you had your own studio. I'm a person who produces. I'm basically a one-man band at this point. I play all my instruments and record songs. I just wanted to know if they were right. It's for that type of situation.
Any tips for that?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's awesome doing that, you know. And I would say, you know, two things. One, you know, in recording everything you're doing, you know, give it a really honest listen, and give it to other people to listen to that you trust, okay? To be critical, learn how to take criticism. You know, as a writer of your own music and producer of your own music, I had a really hard time learning how to do that. Take criticism from other people, you know, because you can learn from that. You can learn more if everybody just yeses you to death, you know. I've had students, you know, before where their parents are like, oh, he's the best, he's brilliant, you know, and just everything he does is right. And you're not going to grow if you don't learn how to take criticism and fine tune what you need to work on. And as far as getting your music out there, is you being honest with yourself and be selective of what. I try to do this with other young artists because I've been a music director for other young people. And I've said to them before, this one girl I was working with, I'm like, you don't have to take every single song the second you write it and throw it right out there, you know? Learn to take it, develop it. Sometimes things have to be put on the back burner until they develop a little bit over time. And then put, you know, when it's ready, then you put it out there. Because you may not, you know, people are going to hear that song and they may not want to hear it a year again. Be like, hey, I have one guy that I've done stuff with. When he writes a song, he'll go onto SoundCloud. I go on the SoundCloud thing, I'm always being updated. And there's like 14 versions. And he's like, which ones you guys like best? He's always asking people, like, you know, and it's just like this song Jericho. And I'm like, man, there's 14 different versions up there. It's kind of cool to hear it done different ways, but you know, at some point you gotta. I see where he's going at, but you know, just he doesn't need to put like. I've tried to talk to him and be like that. You don't need to put every single version up there because now whenever he puts another version up there, I won't listen to it. I'm like, I've heard it. I don't want to hear ukulele in the background now. I don't want to hear it with accordion. I've heard it with, you know, a French horn player in the background, and I heard it with keys and screaming guitar, and I've heard it, you know, with acoustic guitar, and I've heard it with it's a great tune, but now he's ruining it for me because he's just, like I said, I don't even want to hear it anymore. So it's okay to be a little selective over time to put out what you want, but turn it over to people that you respect and ask them for their honest opinion. And you know what? Say to the person, say, I really want your honest opinion. If there's something in here that sucks that you don't like about it, it might be an opinion, but I want to know because you hear something in your head. Not everybody's going to hear what you do. You know, they're going to pick out different things. You know, and that's a growth process, and we learn a lot. So anyway, any other before? Because I'm going to play a little bit more, and I'm going to have Andrew back up and Matt, Matt Carbs, bass player, who I've never played with. So we're going to play a little bit. So they can come up here now. We're going to play a little bit, and then we're going to jam on a tune together. And thank you so much for being around. I'm going to play a little bit. Any requests?
Wipe out.
What's that?
Wipe out.
Yeah. I'll do my version. The Easy Teenage New Yorker.